Mangwana ni Mwalelepo Vukenjani Class Vanave Africa. Welcome to Africa Good Morning, your trusted source for the latest headlines in and around Africa. Today, in today's show, Somalia's presidential convoy survives an al-Shabab bomb attack while Mali withdraws from the international organization of la Francophonie, joining Burkina Faso and Niger in rejecting France's influence. Meanwhile, a WHO report warns that Nigeria, Kenya and other nations may soon run out of HIV drugs due to halted US aid. In South Africa, conservationists celebrate a last-minute court order to protect endangered African penguins. Stay tuned for the latest economic updates, weather and the South Africa report with Arrie Hougaard. Join us live every weekday from 7 a.m. on DSTV 285, GOTV 25, 1up2.com and Network Media Hub on YouTube. This is Africa Good Morning. Let's head into the top stories shortly. Soon after President Hassan Sheikh Mohamud's convoy left the grounds of the presidential palace, the motorcade was rocked by a bomb blast. According to various eyewitness accounts, the explosion could have left as many as 3 people dead, although no official information on casualties has been released. Government sources, however, confirmed that the president was unharmed and headed to Middle Shabelle in southern Somalia to oversee military operations against al-Shabab. Al-Shabab, which opposes the federal authorities, frequently carries out bombings and assaults targeting government and military officials. This is, however, only the second time since 2014 that the president has been directly targeted. In recent weeks, Somalia's government has stepped up efforts to combat al-Shabab, which controls parts of rural Somalia and threatens the government's hold over the nation in the Horn of Africa. Moving on to our next story. Mali, Burkina Faso and Niger are once again united in challenging France. Mali followed Burkina Faso and Niger's lead, announcing its withdrawal from the International Organization of la Francophonie, or IF. The Malian Ministry of Foreign Affairs stated that the country could not remain a member of an organization whose actions are incompatible with its constitutional principles, which are based on state sovereignty. This decision follows similar moves by Burkina Faso and Niger, who, like Mali, have military regimes and have broken ties with France in favor of sovereignty. The 3 nations, founding members of the OIF, condemned the organization for selectively applying sanctions and undermining their sovereignty, calling it a politically motivated tool. The withdrawal comes amid growing tensions between these countries and France, as military leaders in the Sahel turn to Russia and reassert their sovereignty, symbolized by the renaming of streets and monuments that once honored France. 8 countries, 6 of them in Africa, including Nigeria, Kenya and Lesotho, could soon run out of HIV drugs following the U.S. government's recent decision to pause foreign aid. The UN World Health Organization said U.S. President Donald Trump announced the freeze on his first day in office in January as part of a review into government spending. Disruptions to HIV programs could undo 20 years of progress, WHO Chief Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus warned. It could also lead to more than 10 million additional cases of HIV and 3 million HIV-related deaths, he added, noting this was more than triple the number of deaths last year. Nigeria, Kenya, Lesotho, South Sudan, Burkina Faso and Mali, as well as Haiti and Ukraine, would run out of life-saving antiretroviral medicines in the coming months, Dr. Tedros said. Trump's executive order paused foreign aid support for an initial duration of 90 days, in line with his America First foreign policy. It has affected health programs around the world, leaving shipments of critical medical supplies, including HIV drugs, greatly hampered. The majority of the U.S. Agency for International Development's programs have since been terminated. And despite a waiver issued in February for the U.S.'s groundbreaking HIV program, its work has been severely impacted. 6 key breeding areas are to be safeguarded to help save the African penguin, following a landmark court order in South Africa. Last year, scientists warned that the species was declining by around 8% every year and could become extinct within a decade. The court has imposed no fishing zones around the breeding colonies to prevent so-called purse-seine fishing vessels, which use large nets from catching sardines and anchovies for the next 10 years. The order is the result of an out-of-court settlement reached before a 3-day High Court hearing was due to start between conservation groups, the commercial fishing industry, and the Department of Forestry, Fisheries and Environment last year. BirdLife South Africa and the Southern African Foundation for the Conservation of Coastal Birds started the legal action, the first case of its kind in South Africa. They alleged that ministers had failed to adequately protect the endangered species after failing to implement key recommendations from a scientific panel brought in by the government to assess the risk to the African penguin. They argued the continuation of inadequate interim closures to fishing vessels around the breeding colonies, which are mainly in the Western Cape, had been allowed. The Biodiversity Law Center, which represents the groups, said the number of penguins had dwindled from 15,000 in 2018 to just under 9,000 at the end of 2023. It said if the current rates of decline persisted, the African penguin could be extinct by 2035. Those have been our top stories on Africa Good Morning. After the break, we head to South Africa as Arrie Hougaard brings us a comprehensive report of the news stories stemming from Mzansi. All right, it is time for us to talk to Arrie Hougaard as he brings us the comprehensive South African report. Goeiemôre, Arrie.
Ja, goeiemôre. Lekker om met jou te gesels. Good to talk to you on this lovely Thursday morning. Tomorrow a holiday, public holiday in South Africa. So it's a nice Thursday. Feels like a Friday.
All right, Arrie, let's get into your stories, and some of them quite contentious. I'm just going to talk through what you're going to be talking to us about with regards to current affairs. The South African economy continues to be a major discussion point as there is uncertainty if the interest rate will be adjusted later today. Also in your stories, related to the recently announced 2025 budget, the Parliamentary Budget Office has advised against a VAT increase on the 1st of May. And medical researchers brace for the worst as the U.S. National Institute of Health might end their support to South Africa. Arrie, the current affairs.
Yes, Ashwin, lots happening in the South African economy. I know it's been turmoil, tough times for South Africa, lots of pressure on them from different directions. The budget speech and the budget by the Minister of Finance there was the big focal point. We have respect for him. It's a tough budget to get right this time. Lots of discussion happening now at national level. It's the National Assembly and also the National Council of Provinces that need to approve the budget. We'll get to that. Maybe I'll address that just now as well, but maybe just on the current financial situation, there's uncertainty if the interest rate will be amended today. So the reason that most of the expectation is that the repo rate will be kept at 7.5%, and The annual consumer inflation for February stayed at 3.2%. It's the same as in January. So hopefully the repo rate can stay then as the same. South Africa being caught up a little bit in emerging markets that's under pressure. One example is Turkey that's under pressure, obviously. Long way away, but it influences the whole. We're under the same umbrella of emerging markets. So there's political turmoil there. The lira went down 12% in Turkey, so that is not good. What's happening on the ground, the food prices, so fuel prices rather, for the last, it's actually cheaper now, fuel prices, than a year ago, 12 months ago. But maize, for instance, went up quite a bit, 10.6%. And then also sand up 18.7%. And there's been droughts. There's been lots of rain now in the north as well, but it's a little bit better now. But in the time of the crops, it wasn't good. So South Africa a bit under pressure there. And then obviously, as you mentioned, the budget, it is the parliamentary. The budget office advised that the VAT won't be increased. So that's a big discussion point at the moment. The biggest discussion point is actually how much power do the Minister of Finance have to implement the VAT increase if there's no agreement. So normally the rate bill is something that is approved later in the year, only in October. So we can't wait for that. It needs to be approved by the 1st of April. Otherwise, we can just use 45% of the budget. That's the rules. So that is under discussion still in Parliament. And then researchers research money or money for research on medical terms in South Africa. It is the US National Institute of Health that might pull also their support. So they're different from USAID. So it's not the same group. That's the National Public Health Institute. It's normally awarded to competitive grants by application, but it's related to TB, tuberculosis and AIDS support or research in South Africa. Department of Health say that currently only makes up 28% of that budget, but it's lots of money, lots of support. So hopefully the research on those areas can continue as well. So it's important. So lots of pressure from the USA. It's expected, unfortunately. The National Institute will also say that they're not going to support this anymore.
Yes, Arrie, indeed, we certainly hope such important research can continue considering the current upheaval, particularly due to the Trump administration's decisions. Now we're going to move into something that we can both find some common ground, not just us, everyone around the world, and that is the sport. And currently the 2025 Absa Cape Epic is taking place in the Cape Wineland, and Namibian Fera Lusa is doing well again. And do also update us of Bafana playing Lesotho on Friday in a FIFA World Cup qualifying game.
Yes, that's when the Absa Cape Epic, one of the premier events, is probably the biggest. It's almost like the Tour de France of mountain biking at the moment in the world, internationally recognized. So it's a big event. Vera Lusa, she's always been very competitive in these events. Actually, she won it 2 years ago. She was a winner of the team. One of the team, ladies team that won. And this year she's cycling with Alexis Ashada. She also did last year. So at the moment they're second. Tough to compete with the leaders. It's Annika Langvat and Sofia Gomez-Villafone. But there's Vera Lusa there in front cycling with the American partners. They currently about 13 minutes behind the leaders after stage 3, including the prologue. So there they're cycling in the beautiful Boland. It was extremely hot yesterday. It was 35 to 40 degrees in Paarl where they were. Today they're again in the mountains there in Paarl, 80 kilometers. So it's 603 kilometers, the Cape Epic over 8 days, and they climb all of 16 kilometers, 16,000 meters in that time over the 605 kilometers. So it's crazy, very competitive, very tough. So it's a premier event in Cape Town. So hopefully it will finish on Sunday. So hopefully Vera Lusa can be again on the podium. So yes, on the football, it's Friday night. It's going to be a game in Polokwane. It's South Africa, the Bafana team playing against Lesotho. Must-win games all through now. They need to win all of their games. So it's very competitive. I like the two attackers that's been brought in. It's Percy Tau. He plays for Qatar. And I also like Lyle Foster. He plays for Burnley in the English Premier League when the England football. So hopefully they can make an impact as at front to score the goals needed. 1-0 will be enough. We don't need to do it 5-0. 1-0 will be enough. Anyone will be good on Friday.
Hey, you know what, Ari, not to remove the conversation from international football, but when Arsenal beat Chelsea over the weekend, I kept saying 1-0 is enough and no one believed me. But thank you for validating that with your comment with regards to Bafana, because sometimes 1-0 really is enough. We know Jose Mourinho definitely believes in that. Now, something that I also believe in is the beauty of Africa, and something you're well versed in is the beauty of South Africa. And in Cape Town, tandem paragliding is a very popular tourist attraction, as well as the Sea Point Promenade must visit for tourists. Tell us about it, Ari.
Yes, the paragliding, the tandem paragliding, I've been, there's a lookout point there when we go for sunsets there. It's just next to Table Mountain. You see them going off the mountain in tandem. So it's extremely popular. It is High Five is the one company that presents that. It's a tandem paragliding. It's a little bit expensive. Well, it costs 1,800 rand, but you must imagine what quite a process to get all this stuff there, a little bit up the mountain and going down again into Sea Point. Beautiful sights there. You can see that it looks like it takes you about 7 minutes to 14 minutes or 15 minutes of time to get down into Sea Point there by the Atlantic Ocean. It is a brilliant time for everyone. You need to be 14 years and older for a start, but also be not weighing more than 115 kilograms, because that's important not to make the tandem process under pressure. And you can also make videos and photos while you're doing that. And then you go down, you land down in Sea Point, and Sea Point's been it's been there since 1795. The Sea Point area started. That's the Sea Point Promenade, 2.1 kilometers. You can walk there next to the sea, beautiful sunsets, and then also you have the very popular Sea Point swimming pool that's been there since the 1950s. And the interesting thing there is a 50-meter Olympic swimming pool. There's a diving springboard, Ashwin, if we're brave enough, 5 meters. And then also the water is sourced from the ocean. So it's a swimming pool with seawater. So that is very unique. So when you're in Cape Town, visit the promenade and maybe also do the paragliding.
I think the key word there is maybe, Ari, because you spoke of 115 kilograms limit with paragliding. I've got questions with regards to myself. And then you spoke about diving, and I'd like to refer you to the aforementioned 115 kilograms. Thank you very much, Ari, for bringing us the news stories from South Africa.
Yes, indeed. Maybe both of us can maybe go in a nice little process to lose some weight, and then when you visit Cape Town, we'll be brave enough to do that.
All right, this is Africa. Good morning. It has been raining in Windhoek and it's been very consistent. So let's have a look at the weather report. Namibia is making major strides in expanding internet access, with $25 million Namibian dollars set to provide uncapped connectivity for schools and clinics, including solar panels for off-grid institutions. An additional $40 million Namibian dollars is allocated for the 2025-26 financial year, with plans to install 10 more 4G radio access sites in underserved areas where speeds remain below 80 Mbps. Speaking at the Universal Service Fund launch CRAN CEO Emilia Ngikembwa highlighted these developments, while Minister of Information, Communication and Technology Emma Theophilus confirmed that network coverage now reaches over 90% of the population, with 4G expanding to 88.4%. However, she acknowledged that regions like Karas, Hardap and Kunene still face connectivity challenges. Here's what she had to say.
Mobile network coverage has reached over 90% of our population, not geographically, but population-wise. And internet penetration rate has climbed steadily. In urban areas, nearly 85% of households now have access to reliable internet services, while rural areas have begun to experience improvements thanks to the concerted efforts of our network providers who are here in the room, and we thank them for their continuous work, and of course government policies that favor investment in digital infrastructure. Moreover, the population coverage for 4G services in Namibia increased from 79% in 2021 to 88.4% in 2024, just like the CEO of CRAN has indicated. Nine out of Namibia's 14 regions exhibit 4G population coverage above 80%. However, we still have some of the regions lagging in terms of 4G population coverage, including the Karas region, the Rombo region, Hardap, the two Kavango, which is Kavango East and West, Omaheke, and the Omisati region. The Kunene region unfortunately lags the most, with 49% 4G population coverage. However, what is encouraging in the bigger scheme of things is that 4G coverage is slowly outpacing 3G coverage, which stands at 89%. One of the standout successes of our previous initiatives is the rapid deployment of base stations in remote areas. By prioritizing underserved communities, we have begun bridging the digital divide.
Thank you for staying with Africa Good Morning throughout the broadcast. And tomorrow we look forward to celebrating Namibia's 35th Independence Day and the inauguration of the first female president, Netumbo Nandi-Ndaitwah. But for now, from the Africa Good Morning team, DSTV 285, GOTV 25, 1up2.com and Network Media Hub is where you can find us. Soda Jaganaka.